killing our people? What are you arresting our people for?
I don't know that.
You do not know. What are they doing in your van? Why did you go and take them from that spot? You, the mothers of this country, you are gathered here as testimony to the effect that you are the rightful owners of this land. And towards the fulfillment of those aspirations, you have given up your lives for our children.
Hello, hi. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. So today I want to talk to you about my favorite political figure. Yeah, I know that's an oxymoron. Those words don't go together. But hear me out, lend me an ear, and maybe at the end of this, I would have convinced you why I said what I said. And maybe I would convince you to remember her differently. Yeah. So let's get to it. So over the weekend, specifically on Sunday, I came across this documentary on Prime Video, and it was titled Winnie. I decided to give it a chance, and I was happily surprised. I was happily surprised because of the way this story is told, the way her story is told. So Winnie is a documentary about Winnie Mandela, and it is a retelling of her story. And I appreciate the way it was told. Granted, she was there, so she had a lot of contributions to make. But as a history student and as a South African, Winnie is remembered differently. She is remembered as the ex-wife, which I think is very unfair because not only does it discredit her, but it discredits all the work that she had put in during the entire apartheid struggle, which that is unfair. So this documentary took the approach of retelling her story as an activist, and I really appreciated that. So let's talk about it. Directed by Pascle Lamche, I hope I'm saying that right. The 2017 self-titled documentary, Winnie, provides a story of Winnie Mandela during the anti-apartheid struggle movement and also depicts what her life had become after all the years she has spent championing for the liberation of oppressed South Africans. In this difficult retelling of a historical figure that has somewhat been deemed controversial, both in her methods for seeking liberations as well as the allegations brought against her afterwards, one thing remains clear. One thing that this documentary does not mess around, and one message that doesn't get lost, is the fact that the apartheid regime was afraid of Winnie, and they seeked out every tactic, every method, everything in their power to destroy her. They were threatened by her. Winnie was a threat to the apartheid government. In her own words, right, as well as the interviewees that are present in the scenes of this documentary, there's a picture that's painted early on in the documentary, and that is Winnie was a leader. Winnie was an activist, and I say was because she has passed on now. So this picture is painted early on in the documentary, and it's clear to see throughout the whole documentary, throughout the archive videos, the archive newspaper clippings, and everything that had unfolded, that Winnie was a leader with or without the man that she has been attached to her whole life. As the commander of the military wing of the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe, Winnie in many ways was responsible for continuing the fight against the regime. When I say the regime, I mean the apartheid regime, so I'm just going to refer to it as the regime from now on. With many of her fellow comrades either in exile or imprisoned, she would push the efforts in the liberation movements through communication with other comrades in exile, as well as organizing attacks against the regime. This was, of course, made difficult because of the regime's determination to stop her. Remember what I said before? Yeah. So if they were not raiding her house, if they were not arresting her on a regular basis, that it became normal to her and her children, they were always keeping tabs on her, either following her and listening in on her phone calls, doing both. In some of their more extreme efforts to destroy her, their regime would use isolation as a tactic to break her. And Winnie would recall a time she was put on solitary confinement for months on end. And you can't do that, that's illegal. But we're talking about apartheid here, so is anything really illegal? So she would say that this was meant to kill her emotionally, to an extent that at the end she would only have two options. It's either she would fight till she can't no more, or she succumbs and then decides to work with the enemy. Another time was when she was banished to a town called Brantford. It's a town in the Orange Free State. It was previously named the Orange Free State. It's just Free State now. Brantford in the Orange Free State with her daughter Zinzi in 1977. So it's an unknown town surrounded by people she's unfamiliar with, who spoke a language that she couldn't speak. And if that was not enough, the apartheid regime would then tell the citizens of Brantford, including children, that, hey, do not talk to this communist woman. Do not talk to her, as if they knew how powerful she was. And this was, in my opinion, an attempt to stop her from mobilizing, because they knew that, yeah, this might not break her. She might start mobilizing and start talking political to these people. So they started telling people not to interact with her in any way to prevent that from happening. So I did history in high school, and when we were taught about the different political liberation movements around the world, it would be emphasized regarding certain political activists that they are non-militant. This would be highly emphasized that they are non-militant and their organizations are non-militant. They are not violent in their ways of seeking liberation. And this would be said in juxtaposition of very violent institutions, the same institutions that they are fighting against, the same governments that would not hesitate to end their lives. It would be said in a way of those ones were the good ones. And I think this is what made Winnie somewhat controversial, because I think people viewed her as this person that seeked violence. And that's just a weird way of looking at it. It's a weird way of looking at it, honestly, in my opinion.
To the viciousness of apartheid.
Pressure is being exerted on us as the arch oppressors of our time.
In the archive media reportings by the regime shown throughout the whole documentary, few clips here and again, and radio echoing in the documentary, they had repeatedly claimed that the problem was the violence that was incited by the anti-apartheid activists, including Winnie. I think we can all see through this. I think if the most violent institution is saying, oh, you know, the problem is you guys and the violence that you are inciting on us, it's kind of like, buddy, you started it. We wouldn't do this if you didn't do what you're doing.
Would you be prepared to take up a gun and kill someone in order to achieve your freedom?
Now, I know I can.
And if Winnie's stance on militant retaliation was not clear, in one of the scenes of the documentary, the interviewer asks her, would you be prepared to take up a gun and kill someone in order to achieve what you would regard as your freedom? To this, she responds, now I know I can. And to expand on her answer, she goes on to state that she didn't, but when she saw her children being mowed down in Soweto in 1976, she then realized that in order to defend them, she would do exactly the same. And this is a quote from one of the scenes of the documentary where Oliver Tambo was speaking at a press conference. And he goes on to say, it's a bit heartless to keep saying the ANC must abandon its violence, because that is saying that the regime is not violent.
What are you doing here, killing our people? What are you arresting our people for?
I do not know that.
You do not know? What are they doing in your van? Why did you go and take them from that Sparta camp when they'd done nothing?
In this recapping of the documentary up until now, picture is painted very clearly. That picture of the kind of role that Winnie played against the apartheid regime in this liberation movement. With most of her comrades either in exile or imprisoned, it was up to her to communicate, it was up to her to organize, it was up to her to mobilize and talk to the people, advocate for the people in the many ways that she was doing. And in between doing all this, she was visiting her husband, she was giving out statements, she was wearing ANC colors when ANC was banned in South Africa. She was doing all this. She was a true ride or die for her husband as well as for the South African people, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind while I tell you this next part. So the angle of saying she was violent, she was depicted as this violent woman that I mentioned before, as well as other accusations of saying that she was the one that has incited some of the protests that got violent, including the Soweto uprisings in 1976. They said that that was her fault. All this were attempts to discredit her, but the big boss in attempting to discredit her came when there were allegations against her, serious allegations that could land her in prison. And these allegations included murder. And I found this convenient because they came around the time when negotiations started and they were ushering the new dawn, the new democratic South Africa. And at the beginning of the TRC, I think it was the first day of the TRC, they brought her in and they found her guilty of 6 other charges. I think included this one. There were 6 charges. And I found it to be convenient because not only, I think she was in the running she could have been the vice president of South Africa. And after her husband had stepped down, or her husband's term had ended, she could have potentially go on to become the president of South Africa. I found it convenient that this is all happening at that time.
And for that part of those painful years when things went horribly wrong and we were aware of the fact that there were factors that led to that. For that, I am deeply sorry.
So after watching this documentary, you feel an overwhelming sense of betrayal and disappointment. Betrayal on behalf of Winnie and disappointment in the people in her life, specifically her husband, as well as the organization she rooted for, campaigned for, and advocated for when she could have gotten in trouble for doing that. With her husband, with the whole idea of her being president and out of the window, I do think it was a bit weird that he apparently in the documentary, this is stated in the documentary, he was given an ultimatum to choose whether he would want to be president or keep being Winnie's husband. And we know how that story ended. But I don't know how certain this is. But the whole idea of divorcing your wife after she's been with you through thick and thin, that is the real definition of thick and thin. I don't care. I really don't care. But her being his advocate outside and being his mouthpiece and also furthering his work, his liberation work, and her liberation work. She was part of the liberation as much as he was, if not more. But then the whole idea of when the allegations came, this was on the part of the organization, when the allegations came and they decided to distance themselves away from her when she didn't do that, when she could have gotten in trouble for being associated with them and showing it out publicly by wearing their colors and doing all this. But for me, that's betrayal. That's the whole definition of betrayal. And I feel like the way that South Africans remember her was because of that. That was where the whole she's just a wife narrative was written, in my opinion, because she was more than that. She was more than that.
Winnie Mandela was supposed to be a president of South Africa.
And yes, yes, I do think she should have been president. I do believe that if she was president, maybe, just maybe, we can't know for certain, but maybe things would have been different for South Africans. Well, anywho, thank you for watching. If you got this far, tell me what you think about Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Be respectful, please. And yeah, I hope to see you again. And thank you very much. One more thing. Do the liking, do the subscribing, please. Bye.